You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, a Kansas City woman pleads guilty to a murder for hire.
Anya, do you hear that?
Silence?
No. You didn't hear that? That cracking sound? It's the crack of dawn over the 4 states.
Oh, goodness.
It's the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, restoration and biology go hand in hand when it comes to preserving Italy's works of art. We'll have all that and more coming up.
Watch News starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. A federal judge in Oklahoma says the state can move forward with scheduled lethal injections for 5 death row inmates. Judge Stephen Freott's ruling paves the way for the state to proceed with 7 lethal injections scheduled over the next 6 months. 5 of those 7 inmates had argued their execution should be put on hold, while Freott hears a legal challenge to the state's 3-judge lethal injection protocol. Among those 5 inmates is Julius Jones, whose case and death sentence has drawn international attention. Attorneys for the inmates have promised to appeal the judge's ruling. Oklahoma halted lethal injections in Oklahoma after 2 men died in what were widely criticized as botched executions. Officials from 2 northeastern Oklahoma cities are siding with the state and law enforcement groups and requesting the Supreme Court overturn the McGirt ruling. That ruling found that Oklahoma has no jurisdiction over crimes committed by or against Native Americans on tribal reservations. Now Tulsa and Owasso have joined Texas, Kansas, Louisiana, and Nebraska in filing briefs supporting Oklahoma's request that the Supreme Court overturn the ruling. The city's alleged crimes such as domestic violence have not been prosecuted. Federal prosecutor and the Cherokee Nation dispute the claims. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt has called the McGirt decision the biggest issue facing the state and praised the filings. 44-year-old Kansas City woman pleads guilty to solicitation of capital murder after she helped set up a plan to kill an inmate at the Lansing Correctional Facility. During a plea hearing, Renee Johnson Fritz admitted that she sent a message to inmate Andrew Hogue ordering the death of another inmate. The target inmate was attacked in April of 2019 but survived. Johnson Fritz's husband, Frederick Fritz, is also charged with solicitation of capital murder. Prosecutors say he sent his wife a letter demanding the death of the Lansing inmate. Witnesses at a preliminary hearing say Frederick Fritz is a leader of the Aryan Brotherhood of Kansas. Hogue is charged with attempted capital murder. 3 largest public universities in Kansas will require all employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Officials with Kansas State, the University of Kansas, and Wichita State all announced that employees will need to be fully vaccinated by December 8th. The announcement came after the Board of Regents determined that an executive order from President Biden applies to universities that work on federal contracts. Emporia State and Fort Hays State are not subject to the mandate because they do not administer any federal contracts. Pitt State officials say the school was reviewing the requirements. Employees will be allowed to apply for religious or medical exemptions. Pittsburgh YMCA is kicking off a new program to address food insecurity among kids. The Y says 1 in 5 children do not know where their next meal is coming from. To address that, they've introduced the Grab and Go food program. It's a weekly program that allows kids to pick up a grocery bag with enough food to feed them for a week.
I definitely think Ron's recognizes the need and that they know how important this relationship is for our community and wanting to help that impact. And so it's really a blessing for us that Ron's has been committed to the community like they are.
The program officially starts Saturday at Ron's Supermarket in Pittsburgh. After that, distribution will take place every Saturday from 9 to 11 at Ron's. Well, an example of the world's first postage stamp, the penny black, is being offered at auction. Sotheby's said yesterday, of course, with a price estimate of up to $8.25 million. That's the right price. Dating from 1840, the item is the earliest securely dated example of the first postage stamp. That's according to the auction house. The stamp is one of 3 penny blacks believed to have survived from the very first sheet of printed stamps. The other 2 are part of the collection at the British Postal Museum. It's the first of its kind to be offered at auction, giving it a price estimate of $4 million. to 6 million pounds if you measure your money in pounds.
Queen Victoria, right?
I'll take your word for it.
Pretty sure it was. Pretty sure that was Queen Victoria. High temperatures for the past 10 days. Well, we had a slew of 70s and then it got a little chilly there yesterday. And what that did is dropped our October average high below the 75-degree mark. Now we're going to be back up into the 70s today, but this is going to be the last day, probably of October, probably for a long time, that we're going to have some 70s, because even as we kick into early November, we're expecting below average temperatures for at least the first full week. That's a pretty cool shot right there outside of Television City. That's a live look with the cloud cover providing us with just, I mean, look at that right there. And that is so neat. I love those shots. Skywatch Storm Tracker. It does remain clear, with temperatures ranging anywhere from about 43 being our low points in Fort Scott and in Stockton, all the way up to 51 right now in Miami. We'll put Pittsburgh at 47. There is our cloud cover that we were talking about, kind of dividing us between the northwest and the southeast. And the cloud cover not as thick as what we had yesterday. So even the places that do have, you've got the clouds hanging over you, you're going to get a lot more sunshine than what we had. Ridge of the jet stream squarely over us. That means warmer temperatures as everything will filter in. We're starting to see just on the north side of the Red River that begin to line up as well. Now we do have a low pressure system that's sitting just to the east of the Rockies, and that is headed our way. And what that's going to do overnight, we're going to get thunderstorm activity. So as we push through Tuesday and make it up into the mid 70s, we keep our eyes out to the west. And once it starts, it doesn't look too impressive. You go, oh, maybe that'll just jaunt through and be done by Wednesday afternoon. That's not going to be the case. Once this thing starts tomorrow, don't go anywhere without an umbrella, because we're going to have it stall out on the eastern edge right here. And once this stalls, it then begins to make counterclockwise motion and comes back and lasts all the way through Thursday as well. And so that's going to increase our rain totals anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 inches. Now we do stay out of anything on the severe thunderstorm risk map, meaning we don't have to worry about the high wind nor the hail. We are going to bundle up at the same point in time. That's going to be some cooler rain right there, with temperatures that'll drop down to the 50s on Thursday and Friday. But as we head toward Halloween, the kiddos are going to love this. We're talking about a Sunday. And while it's going to be cool, it's going to be mostly sunny skies. And by the time they take off in those costumes and they've got the multi-layers on, even if they go out, you know, around dusk or even after sunset, we're still looking at, say, mid to low 50s. Tanya?
All right, up next, new guidelines for appendicitis treatment. And later, dozens of farmers come together to help a family in their time of need. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's the most common emergency surgical procedure in the U.S., appendectomy for appendicitis. And now there's mounting evidence some patients can avoid or delay removing the appendix and receive treatment with antibiotics instead. Elise Preston has more on the latest research and a patient who was given the option.
5 years ago, Heather Van Dusen ended up in the emergency room at University of Washington Medical Center.
I was in really terrible pain, more pain than I had ever really felt with stomach issues before. So much so that I wanted to vomit.
The diagnosis, appendicitis, which typically meant urgent surgery to remove the infected or inflamed appendix. Now, the latest research has led the American College of Surgeons to say antibiotics can be a first-line treatment for many patients.
If you have appendicitis and present to the emergency department, you have treatment options from surgery or for antibiotics.
Dr. Gianna Davidson of UW Medicine is a co-author on the largest ever randomized clinical trial of appendicitis treatment. 1,500 patients received either an appendectomy or antibiotics. In the first 3 months, nearly 7 in 10 patients in the antibiotic group avoided surgery. 4 years out, just under half of patients in the antibiotic group had surgery. Researchers have created this online tool to help patients and surgeons discuss the pros and cons of each approach based on the current data.
We're hoping that helps empower people to have discussions with their surgeons about the treatment option that makes the most sense for them at that moment.
Heather chose antibiotics over an appendectomy.
They didn't make me feel the greatest. I was really tired. It had like a weird metallic taste. But after I finished the course of antibiotics, fine. I'm like, my life went back to normal. I have not had another episode.
She avoided surgery and is grateful she was able to make an informed decision about her health. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Well, you can find a link to that online tool on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. The UW clinical trial did not include children, but researchers say other studies are looking at whether antibiotics could work for pediatric patients. With good reason to learn a second language and a warning about certain stimulants for older adults. Elise Preston has a look at some of the day's top health stories.
A new study in Canada warns stimulants prescribed to older adults could cause heart problems. Researchers say the drugs used to treat a variety of conditions, including depression, fatigue, and post-stroke recovery, are linked to a 40% increased risk of cardiovascular issues in the first month of use. A team of international researchers has discovered biomarkers in urine that can help identify COVID-19 patients at high risk of kidney failure. Kidney issues are extremely common among hospitalized coronavirus patients, and doctors believe screening for these biomarkers will pinpoint those at risk for kidney injury. And learning a second language may help you stay sharp. Researchers in the UK found older adults who studied Spanish as a second language showed improved cognitive skills. The gains were seen even among those who never became fluent. That's a look at some of the day's top health stories. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Their families took part in a Dog-a-ween costume contest in a park in Lima, Peru last Thursday. First, second, and third places, of course, those prizes were given to those dogs who were dressed up as a nurse, animatronic doll from Netflix's Squid Game, and Wonder Woman. The event was organized by Lima Park Service to provide safe recreation and open spaces during the COVID-19 pandemic. Judges took into consideration creativity, originality, and the participants' performance during the runway. Dogs whose humans were also dressed up got extra points. This costume is a tribute to all the nurses who have been doing an honorable labor. That was, of course, said by Maria Pilar Lucas, the owner of the first place winner. During the event, dogs could also get free deworming and veterinarian consultation. That's nice.
Personally, my favorite dog costume of all time would be a Boston Terrier dressed as a dinosaur.
Yes. It's the littlest ones with the bark.
You didn't see that one coming, did you? I had that one ready to rock. I know my favorite dog costume. God bless you, Louie. I'm glad you don't have to wear that costume any longer, my friend. Daily Almanac for this October the 26th, our record high dating back to 1950. Yesterday, we were 6 degrees below even our average, only got to 61 degrees over Joplin Regional Airport. And there we are with a live look over 7th and Rangeline, where we sit at a cool 49 degrees. The clouds are beginning to recede a little bit. 51 in Miami, 49 in Chanute, and 43 in Nevada. There's the cloud cover. Even down here, it's not as heavy as what it was yesterday, and we're going to be on the dry side all the way until tomorrow. There's the ridge of the jet stream indicating the warmer temperatures are just going to be able to make it just about up to Kansas City before it cuts off right there. Got a mess on their hands out on the northeastern portion of the United States. The West Coast, on the other hand, finally beginning to calm down. They still do have the atmospheric river, and we can put that in an infrared satellite and show you exactly what that looks like. Now, yesterday, this tail of it was still hitting the coast of California, so at least they're getting a little break from it. And then we also talk about the bomb cyclone, the bombogenesis. You heard that out on the West Coast. Well, here's exactly what that is. It's a low pressure system that right now, you got to remember, with our satellite, we can shift it either way, but really wanted to get the best view of what was left of it. It was sitting right here yesterday, and as it moves toward Alaska right there, a bomb cyclone is indicated with millibars, and that's what you measure your barometer in. When it drops 24 millibars in 24 hours, that is a bomb cyclone. You can also tell this one out here, that's a big low pressure that we were talking about off the East Coast as well. All right, so there's our warm front just on the east side of the low pressure systems, but that low is going to make its way toward us throughout the course of today. And what that's going to result in is, number one, the warm front rolling through puts us back into the 70s, see some mid 70s even, with a good southwest wind. And then overnight, still very warm, but yeah, there we go. So we'll have thunderstorm activity that arrives early Wednesday morning, and once it does, don't think it's just going to shoot through here real quick, because it's going to stall out. It stalls out over here to the east, and once it does, then we get counterclockwise motion, and it's going to be on us all the way through Thursday evening. So what we're talking about rain-wise is going to be probably 2.5, 3.5 inches of precipitation. We do get cut off from the marginal category of the severe thunderstorm risk map. We love that scenario. Cooler temps though, it's going to be a cold rain, only in the 50s on Thursday and Friday. Nice looking Halloween though. Kids are going to love it, be out there. Mostly sunny skies during the day. In the evening, get down to say mid to low 50s. By the time the sun goes down, they can get out and enjoy picking up the candy. We'll be back with more KOM Morning News right after this. The latest innovation in the field of restoration of historical works is called bacteria work. In Italy, restorers are using a specific type of bacteria, attaching them to what needs to be restored to clean up the dirt, damage, and aging of sculptures and paintings. Even Michelangelo's statues in the Medici Chapel were restored thanks to these tiny organisms.
A laser burns away the grime of 18 centuries. Caked onto the arch of Septimus Severus in the Forum. Rome may be the eternal city. Its ancient artifacts, however, are not, under unrelenting assault by the ravages of time, pollution, acid rain, and the sweat and breath of millions of tourists. Conservator Alessandro Lugari and his colleagues are using the latest technology to try to salvage the city's treasures. See the block, he asks? It's about 4 cubic meters, several tons, and inside there are billions of bacteria. Bacteria that ever so slowly disfigures and erodes the marble. We built a box so it would be dark, Lugari explains. The temperature and humidity should be relatively high to recreate conditions on the outside like those inside. They then covered the outside of the marble with enzymes, drawing the bacteria out to the surface where it calcified, strengthening the stone. Increasingly, restoration work is being done on a molecular level. But of course, for Italy, the challenge is huge because it has archaeological sites on a monumental scale. While some fight bacteria, others are using it to eat away grease and dirt. Microbiologist Chiara Alisi and her team at ENEA, Italy's National Agency for New Technologies, search for potentially useful strains of bacteria in industrial waste sites, abandoned mines, and from the distant past. They've already been selected by nature to develop potential abilities which we can test and study and apply, she says. This strain we collected from an Etruscan tomb. It's a complicated process, isolating individual strains that thrive on the right kind of filth, sequencing the DNA, and then putting them to work. Silvia Borghini shows us the results in the garden of the Museo Nazionale Romano. With a toothbrush, she removes gel suffused with bacteria from a block of marble once part of a 4th century Roman bridge. The cleanest strip was covered for 24 hours with the SH7 strain. It's easy to apply, and afterwards the artifacts stay clean, Sylvia says. It doesn't harm the environment, it's not toxic for us or the flora in the garden. It's perfect. And therein lies the paradox. A single-celled organism could help preserve this city's ancient glory. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Rome.
Be back with this morning's 4-State Hero right after this.
It's time to honor today's 4-State hero, Woodson Creel of Pittsburgh, Kansas. Creel served as a gunnery sergeant in the U.S. Marines and fought in World War II. We thank you for your service, Gunnery Sergeant Woodson Creel, this morning's 4-State hero. Well, dozens of farmers in western Minnesota came together in a big way to help a family when they needed it most. Last weekend, their 24-year-old son Carson passed away unexpectedly. It was harvest time, but neighbors made sure the family's corn harvest did not fall behind as they grieved.
His kindness and he was just being him, but he was a giver, not looking for the spotlight.
Even during his high school and college years, Carson Lindblad never wanted to be the star, but he wanted to be good. He went on to play football at Dakota State, where he excelled both on and off the field.
We would have a normal conversation and he'd look over and he'd just have this smirk on his face like you knew he was ready to say something.
But on Saturday, Carson's family got the news no one wants to get. Carson had died unexpectedly in his sleep. As the Lindblads mourned the loss of their brother and son, something unexpected was about to happen.
We found out at 8:15 on Saturday night, and this is Monday morning, that all the community has turned out to combine the crops I had left.
As Carson's dad Kevin puts it, the trucks and combines just kept coming and coming, proving there are no limits when it comes to the kindness of neighbors.
My dad is the strongest man. He doesn't like people doing things for him. So to see people come out and support like that, I know it meant a lot to him and it means a lot to us.
In 3.5 hours, they harvested about 300 acres of corn. Kevin says it would have taken him about a week to do that on his own.
But it's more than the machinery. It's all those people in it. I tried to hug and shake every hand that was here today. I mean, you can say thank you. It's not enough.
Most of the farmers who help don't even have their own crops done yet, but they didn't hesitate to put this family before themselves.
Through this worst thing that's happened to us that I could think of, we felt God's love today and people's love, and it's amazing.
About 60 people turned out to combine that corn harvest for the family. Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, Mercy Park adds some new statues to its collection. And some call Haiti one of the kidnapping capitals of the world. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:32. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Federal judge in Oklahoma says the state can move forward with scheduled lethal injections for 5 death row inmates. Judge Stephen Friot's ruling paves the way for the state to proceed with 7 lethal injections scheduled over the next 6 months. 5 of those 7 inmates had argued their execution should be put on hold while Friot hears a legal challenge to the state's 3-drug lethal injection protocol. Among those 5 inmates is Julius Jones, whose case and death sentence has drawn international attention. Attorneys for the inmates have promised to appeal the judge's ruling. Oklahoma halted lethal injections in Oklahoma after 2 men died in what were widely criticized as botched executions. 44-year-old Kansas City woman pleads guilty to solicitation of capital murder after she helped set up a plan to kill an inmate at the Lansing Correctional Facility. During a plea hearing, Renee Johnson Fritz admitted that she sent a message to inmate Andrew Hogue ordering the death of another inmate. The target inmate was attacked in April of 2019 but survived. Johnson Fritz's husband, Frederick Fritz, is also charged with solicitation of capital murder. Prosecutors say he sent his wife a letter demanding the death of the Lansing inmate. Witnesses at a preliminary hearing said Frederick Fritz is a leader of the Aryan Brotherhood of Kansas. Hogue is charged with attempted capital murder. An Associated Press review of data shows the vast majority of complaints of bias made against Kansas law enforcement agencies are not found to have merit. The review says agencies have received hundreds of complaints of bias over the past 10 years, but records available to the public show only 2 alleging racial bias resulted in consequences for officers. Advocates for racial equality question how that could be the case and suggest that law enforcement investigating complaints against other officers and a lack of transparency are problems. Representatives of law enforcement say police investigators that look into bias complaints receive specialized training and that proving bias is extremely difficult. Local Rotary clubs yesterday unveiled new statues in the Rotary Sculpture Garden of Joplin's Mercy Park. There were 12 bronze sculptures in the park. Now there are 3 more. The new statues are called Whimsical Nature of a Little Girl, The Face of Strength in an Osage Woman, and The Brotherhood of 3 Young Boys.
It's a great park. It's starting to mature now, and then add the sculptures, just another element. The whole idea is to bring people to Joplin. And while you're here, come out and enjoy the park, enjoy the sculptures, and like I said, we'll keep adding to it.
Sculpture Garden is a joint effort by the Rotary Club of Joplin and the Joplin Daybreak Rotary. What pair of Michael Jordan sneakers sets a record? The signed 1984 Nike Airship sold for almost $1.5 million at Sotheby's on Sunday. Yes, that's the most ever for a pair of sneakers at auction. They're from Jordan's 5th game in his rookie season. They're also the earliest known regular season Nikes worn by Jordan in a game.
Nah, Marcus, just keep it here. We'll just keep it here. $1.5 million.
Isn't that impressive?
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And that's from his rookie year? Mm-hmm. I wonder how heavy those things are compared to what everybody else wears these days.
They've developed them, so
I know.
much.
I bet if a modern day NBA player was to put those on, they'd feel like concrete around them. Look at those things. I remember that thick leather and everything.
But they felt wonderful back then.
Did it say who bought them?
It was an upgrade. What?
Did it say who bought them?
No. Rarely do those Sotheby's auction stories tell us who actually bought the items.
I'll be walking. I'll be like, what's up?
You gonna walk around in them?
Yeah.
Wear down those soles?
Darn right. I'd go find Michael Jeffrey. Be like, what's up? What's up, Michael Jeffrey? What you got?
I see.
Hey, did you think I was kidding around earlier?
Oh my goodness.
It's a Boston Terrier and a dinosaur for Halloween. You thought I was kidding around, didn't you? You thought I just made stuff up.
It's cute.
Yep. Louis is so happy he doesn't have to wear it. No, actually, Louis wouldn't fit into it anymore. That's the problem.
Louis got fat?
Therein lies. No, you stop. Louis matured.
Louis put on a few pounds.
He was 2 years old when that was taken.
Oh.
He's older now.
Right.
All right, yesterday we only got up to 61. Today, 49 right now in Joplin. But I tell you what, we're going to end up in the 70s. It's going to be absolutely delightful today, and enjoy it, because beginning tomorrow morning, thunderstorm activity that will carry us all the way to Thursday evening. We're talking about 2.5 to 3 inches of rain by the time we get to Friday. Chilly, cold rain as well, but still setting up for a nice Halloween weekend. We'll break down that low pressure system in just a little bit, and back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Something to talk about on the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning InstaPoll. A milestone this week as cryptocurrency began trading. Don't have to be a financial expert to have heard about the valuation of Bitcoin, and sometimes we often hear about the devaluation of what it goes through. Well, if you're wondering if it's not too late to profit, well, experts do warn investors weigh the risks and benefits of investing in any fund holding Bitcoin futures, because that big payoff that you do see is often the curve goes up like that guy's phone, and let's see if this woman gives us the down curve. No, but stability, probably not one of its strong points. But then again, I'm not a financial expert. Don't listen to me. Our question to you is, do you invest? And our leader right now in the clubhouse is the stock market. 37% of you say stock market. One thing I've been keeping my eye on is the paycheck to paycheck. And you'll notice, look at this, 18% say both savings account and paycheck to paycheck. We've seen both of those numbers slowly rise throughout the course of the morning. Appreciate everybody's engagement. Also, too, we have one vote for equine investment. So if give me a holler if you're into equine investment. All right, no easy transition, but I got to make one. It's my job. Haiti is one of the kidnapping capitals of the world, a truth brought to light by the highly publicized kidnapping of 17 American and Canadian missionaries. It's also Haitians who are at the most risk when it comes to these kidnappings. Joe Johns has the details. He's in the capital of Port-au-Prince.
It's as common as the tire fires burning here in the streets of Port-au-Prince. Haiti is one of the kidnapping capitals of the world. The entire country has fallen victim in some way. Commerce and the economy are suffering. Children fear walking to school, even to church. It's a parent's worst nightmare. Everywhere you go, people are worried they could be next. The human toll sinks in talking with the victims. This 15-year-old schoolgirl was abducted in early September and released 7 days later after an unimaginable ordeal.
About 3 men were holding my hands and feet. They raped me.
Did they threaten you while you were there or make you afraid to try to escape?
Yes. They just closed my eyes and they took me somewhere. And I entered inside of the house. They tore off my clothes. They blindfolded my eyes and just left enough for me to see.
She was kidnapped in Croix de Bouquet, the same neighborhood outside Port-au-Prince where the American hostages were taken. Her mother says they initially demanded $50,000 ransom, an unheard of sum for a family living in the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere.
Her mother says the family banded together and sold everything they owned to get her back.
They told me if I didn't come to get her, they would kill her. I didn't have the money. I called my family from the countryside to help out. I negotiated with them for 20,000 Haitian dollars, but they rejected the offer. I then called my family. They sold what they had, and we settled on 30,000 Haitian dollars, and they told me they would release her.
Though the current ongoing case involving 16 Americans and 1 Canadian has generated intense international interest, Haitians are much more likely to be the victims of kidnappings in this country, and their families much less likely to be able to come up with the cash initially demanded.
And it's women and children who are increasingly being targeted. More than 100 abducted so far this year, according to UNICEF, which has been providing victims counseling and relocation for this girl and her mom. They've been working with a local NGO that caters to women in distress. Before she came here, the girl couldn't even speak about her harrowing days as a captive to one of Haiti's ruthless gangs.
Because we have received so many cases of kidnappings, the space has been reserved for 25 women. Now we have exceeded that number. That's why we have land. We will build a bigger center to welcome more women, more victims.
Tonight, UNICEF is warning about yet another danger to women and children resulting directly from the kidnapping trends and general lawlessness in Haiti. A fuel crisis motivated in part by the danger in the streets, jeopardizing patients in hospitals and healthcare delivery with no end in sight. Joe Johns, CNN, Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Well, the nation's business economists are less optimistic about next year's growth. The National Association for Business Economics survey found 66% of members expect the economy will grow between 3 and 5.9% next year, while 28% are expecting lower and slower growth. The rising pessimism is due to snarled supply chains and lingering concerns over COVID-19. Well, a strike is looming at McDonald's. Employees in at least 10 cities are planning to strike over the fast food chain's handling of sexual harassment in the workplace. Last month, one suit was filed against the company alleging a manager raped a teen employee in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the EEOC filed a lawsuit in September accusing a McDonald's franchisee of not properly addressing accusations of sexual harassment at nearly 24 locations across the country. Tesla's latest self-driving software hit a speed bump less than a day after its release. Chief Executive Elon Musk tweeted the full self-driving beta software is being temporarily pulled due to software issues. The action comes after users complained of false collision warnings and other problems. We'll be right back with more after this, but first let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
A student at Morgan State University was shot over the weekend during homecoming. The student only 18 years old. It's Amy Morgan that has more.
It's just like, why? you know? Why?
Morgan State University students and alumni disheartened to learn about a shooting on campus Saturday night.
Were we expecting it? No. This is a homecoming. Would you expect that at a wedding? No. Would you expect that at any celebration?
Just before 7 p.m., following the university's homecoming activities, Baltimore police say officers responded to the 2300 block of Argonne Drive for a shooting. That's where they found an 18-year-old student suffering from a gunshot wound to his chest. Police say the victim was transported to an area hospital and is conscious, alert, and in stable condition.
I see somebody going to an ambulance truck and it was just crazy.
As crime scene tape blocked the entrance to the Montebello complex Saturday evening, in a statement, Morgan State University confirmed the area is secure and there is no active threat to the campus. Baltimore Police Department is actively investigating the incident with Morgan State Police.
It's very hurtful because as a community, in the times that we're in, we're supposed to stick together. We're supposed to empower each other.
My apologies. I should have identified Morgan State as being in Baltimore, Maryland. And so that's exactly where that took place. Here we are over 7th and Rangeline, 49 degrees. Starting to see the clouds part just a little bit. Not a whole lot of sunshine as of yet, but it's going to be a delightful Tuesday, and enjoy today while you can. Get out and get the fresh air and soak in the sunshine, because it's going to be a while before it reemerges. 51 in Miami, 49 in Chanute, and a pair of 46s in Fort Scott and Nevada. Cloud cover has grown up from the southwest with that definitive line from northwest down to the southeast. But even though the clouds are emerging, we're still going to have a nice warm day. Average high this time of year would be 67. We'll get up into the mid 70s here a little bit later on, as the ridge of the jet stream has not pushed off to the east yet. And we're starting to see the color contour there. Earlier when we started the show, it just made its way over the Red River. Now just about to make its way over the Oklahoma-Kansas state line. We've been hearing so much about the West Coast, and I wanted to illustrate the atmospheric river and the bombogenesis, or the bomb cyclone, as they like to call it. Here's the atmospheric river. And what it does is it's pulled right there. And earlier, yesterday even, that tail would actually hit the coast of California. So good news for them as it's tailing off, and not only that, but receding into the Pacific. So that gives them a little break from the rain. And also, too, another key factor, bombogenesis, bomb cyclone, means barometer dropped 24 millibars in 24 hours. Well, this right here, a huge low pressure system, it was sitting right here yesterday. And the fact that it's moved up toward Alaska means very good news for everybody in California. If you watched the football game last night, you know what it was like in Seattle. Well, that was the result of the bombogenesis. Here in the 4 states, we've got a warm front out to our west. That's what's going to push us up into the mid 70s, but also too, this low pressure headed right our way. And when it gets here, we're going to have perfect thunderstorm conditions. Let's go ahead and put future track into motion as we see it generate not only to our west, but also move in with the Gulf moisture from the south. And it would be nice if it would sprint right through, but what happens here Wednesday afternoon, it stalls out east of the Ozarks, and then it begins counterclockwise movement because it doesn't want to move to the east. And that's why we're talking about 2.5 to 3.5 inches of rain as it continues to come down all the way into Thursday evening. It's a 7-day forecast. That also means it's going to be cold rain because we're only going to be in the 50s on Thursday and Friday, but shaping up to be a nice Halloween weekend. 66 on Saturday and 62 for the kiddos in the costumes on Sunday. We'll be back. Wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. 2 people were killed and at least 4 others hurt during a mass shooting at an Idaho mall on Monday. Among the injured, a police officer who was one of the first responders on the scene at the Boise Town Square Mall. Last night, investigators say the gunman was taken into custody after exchanging fire with police. The suspect was hospitalized in critical condition, and that suspect, of course, we'll have the latest on this today at noon. Heavy weather continues to take aim at a wide swath of the U.S. Record-setting rains pounded the West Coast in recent days. Now the Northeast is bracing for another powerful bomb cyclone that could cause flooding and power outages to an area stretching from Maryland to Maine. Nearly all foreign travelers entering the U.S. will have to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 under a new rule announced yesterday by the White House. Airlines will also be required to gather information from all passengers in case contact tracing becomes necessary after a flight. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
Ridiculous coming back from that commercial break when your engineers walk in and Bill Vickery's here and it just gets loud and boisterous. And, those guys. Here we go, mid-70s by the afternoon, and then get ready for steady rainfall. That begins tomorrow morning, and once it starts, it's going to carry us all the way into Thursday. Much cooler temperatures as well to end our work week till we finally rebound back into the 60s for Saturday and Sunday. I was leaving time for Pumpkin Day.
I know, because today at noon we're going to talk about a potential pumpkin shortage for pickers.
Okay. Have you carved your pumpkin yet?
Doing it tonight.
Got it tonight. It would be a good time to do it because if you don't have your pumpkins carved yet and you like to do it outside, I'd get it done today or I'd wait until Friday.
Well, I mean, we couldn't do it in the last couple of weeks. It was too hot. If you wanted rotten pumpkins, go ahead and carve them last week, but no.
There you are. Pumpkin advice. Thank you for letting us put the good in your morning. More news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
Hi, it's Ron, the Chief Carpetologist at Tyler's Carpet Inn.